the daughter of a murderer. Much like Nancy Drew, the teen detective, I began to uncover and discover as I got older to understand that my family was far from the norm, far from the Andy Griffith Show. The more I uncovered, unfortunately, the more gruesome it became. My father, this man that I shared bloodlines with, was a murderer, a rapist, and other adjectives that I just would rather not add. But what I started to ask myself was, what did that make me? Was I gonna grow up and one day wake up to have fangs and hatred? I remember as a child, my mother and my aunts sitting around this heavy wood table in the kitchen that took about a third of the room. They would sit with these extra long cigarettes in hand and black coffee, and they would laugh and they would sing to the radio until somebody mentioned my father. And then it was like black magic that sat in the air. The smile fell from my mother's face, and her eyes would dart back and forth. I wasn't really old enough to understand exactly what it was, but it didn't take old Nancy Drew to connect the dots. I knew something was wrong. And as I got older, people would look at me unknowingly and say, "You look just like your dad." And I would look in the mirror and I would see his reflection coming back at me. And I thought, is it only skin deep? What was that going to make me? But more importantly, what about my kids? I remember carrying this heavy burden of my father's sins and traumas. I was ashamed, and I tried to shed this generational trauma that I had. And it was easy to hide when people would ask about my parents. And I would simply say, "Oh, I have no father." My mother was 13 years old when she became pregnant. And when I was 3 years old, she cut my hair, dressed me like a little boy, and flew to another state to keep me safe. And that was my first recognition of what choice is. The choice to stay, the choice to go. Neither one easy, but the choices are made. And I remember 23 years old, and I would get a call from the prison, and my stomach would ache every single time a letter came with his handwriting. His handwriting would be right across there, and his phone calls would come just to ask for another favor, a little bit more money. And as I read through the articles that were written about him, they began to seep into my day thoughts, but also into my nightmares. And some nights I would lay there, and they were heavy as if I were breathing in the smoke of an uncontrollable fire. My chest would heave, my heart would race, and sweat would roll down my face. And then I would open my eyes and recognize that it was just a dream. Again, a recognition that what I consume creates who I am and what I become. So what I read, what I hear, what I listen to, what I speak, that creates who we are. And when we go back to choice, I remember being 23 years old, a single mother of 2, because I was not going to be a man's excuse for his bad actions or his behavior. So I decided to be a single mother. And I remember that is also when my father called. And I said, "No more." That was baptism by fire. But that is when I took my life back. And I made the choices that every time I was carrying around his sin and his trauma, like heavy boulders, every sin, every trauma from my father, my mother, whoever else, my ex-husband, and I carried those heavy boulders. But then I recognized I chose to pick them up, so I could choose to put them down. Not simply one by one, but drop it like it's hot. Right? So, I remember looking in the mirror, and I also recognized that, you know what? What he left me is only skin deep, besides these great cheekbones that I have. I'll take those. But I decided to stop apologizing. It is not my responsibility to apologize for somebody else's sins. It is not my responsibility to apologize for somebody else's bad behavior and actions when I had nothing to do with them. I don't need to be forgiven for his sins. I don't need to be baptized to get rid of the actions that he brought upon. They're not my actions. And when I decided to take my life back, to also show my children that whatever came behind, it's not our responsibility to take in for our parents or our spouses or even our adult children. Their actions are theirs. At 25 years old, as a single mother, I got laid off a week before Christmas. And I decided, you know what? As hard as it was, I was going to go back to school with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I graduated with a bachelor's in art. Thank you. And the first week after graduation, I took the first job that came my way, right? We needed to pay bills. It was a mail clerk in an insurance company. But I worked hard. I then became the work mother for the young kids. And every time I needed them to do something, I just fed them, brought donuts, right? That's how you get kids to do things for you. And within a year, I got promoted and doubled my salary. Then I started to see that as I was carrying everybody else's sins and traumas, I was blocking my own talents. And the minute I let that go, I now was open to receive. I was open to be. I was open to give passionately to others. Within 7 years, I went from making $12 an hour to opening up a TPA, the whole state of California, and then becoming a global risk manager for a multi-million-dollar company. I worked 60 hours a week, and I went back to school and got a master's in corporate leadership in 14 months while raising my kids. And all of that, I decided that I was going to combine, and I was going to use it as my mission to help others by giving them the resources, by giving them skill sets, by giving them tools that they were not given in school or by others, and most importantly, showing them that they have superpowers. Each person has superpowers. When we start to let go of those heavy burdens that we're carrying, and we open up and we recognize, I am a corporate coach for business professionals, and I help them create businesses. From the first idea of, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm not sure what I want to do, all the way through, I've been in business 20 years, and I need some support. I am a mentor to women in my industry by showing them that they deserve the salary that everybody else is making. They deserve that promotion. They deserve to create their own businesses and have what they need. So my business, as CEO of Beauty and Beast in Business, that is who I am, I created it on 4 pillars: education, advocacy, empowerment, and connection. Because those 4 pillars bring women together and allow us, much like Sue talks, to support one another, to be that fertilizer for growth. So, I am not my father. And I choose to be a positive impact in my community, in my family, and in everything that I do. Each person has a superpower. Each one of you has something to share with the world. So, my loves, I am going to share this with you. It can be frightening. Sometimes we have to coax our inner leader out and help them take the lead, but they're there. And so my question to you is, what kind of leader do you want to be?